All right, we are back with a very distinguished guest, and I've had the real pleasure. It's not that I'm arrogant or anything. I am on 100 phone calls a day, and I have to keep them pretty short. Obviously, in order to get in what I have to do during the day. One of the exceptions is with my next guest, who I found so fascinating. I wish I could have kept her on the phone all day. Maybe we'll do it after the interview. Her name is Carol Jean Singh, just like it sounds, Sing. She is the author of the magnificent book of poems, just getting all kinds of rave reviews. And it's more than just poems. There is a very, very overt message in this book, and I absolutely could. I don't take positions often when I interview. I couldn't agree with her more. The book is published by Author House. You can go to author. Well, you know where to get all these books by now, and it is called Gray Dawn. And she's here to join us this morning, and I've really been looking forward to this, Carol. It's so nice to have you on.
Thank you.
I'd like you to pick up from where I left off, but first, incorporating why you wrote the book, I think it requires the necessity of knowing your background and what led to it, because it was an obviously great decision to make. So please tell us, who is Carol Singh, and how did this all develop?
Well, mainly I'm 78 years old, and I've spent about 50 years in the environmental field working with alternative energy and advanced technology and products that are designed to help preserve our environment, our planet, and everything living on it. And this situation that happened to me is an aberration. One of the things that we did for a small amount of time, my husband and I, where we filed corporations in Nevada, and Nevada is a particularly interesting state in the sense that it doesn't have state taxes and so forth, and they do welcome people from around the world who file corporations here. Well, one thing evolved to another, and there was a particular or specific type of corporation that the IRS got interested in, which was a corporation sole, which is basically a charity. The unfortunate part about it was that the charity was misused by some people in trying to apparently avoid paying taxes, which is not what we did. But anyway, we have the conspiracy theory on the book. I was helping an attorney, in fact, in Salt Lake, file corporations in Nevada, and I got sucked into a tax evasion case of which I'd had no part of, really. And it culminated in my, eventually, after 12 years, of being sentenced to 36 months in a camp. And part of that was in a halfway house, and then 36 months of supervised release. Now, going in at 75 with my background, and I just had a very tough time of it, getting adjusted to an environment like that. And so Gray Dawn is a book. It's a tribute, really, to the people that helped me and helped others survive mentally and physically. And this includes people in the halfway house. There are a number of people that I interviewed, about 90, which are going to be in my next book called No Burden of Proof. And this afternoon, there's going to be a website up which goes into the details a bit more. It's www.carol, C-A-R-O-L, Jean, Jean, Sing, S-I-N-G, books.com. So that's one place where you can look for the information on the book, and it has a shopping cart and so forth. But the poetry that I read, and you're exactly right, is really passion-based. It's impossible to go through a situation at my age where you completely lose your freedom, you're under surveillance 24/7, You can be perceived to have committed something, like not buttoning up your shirt correctly or not having the proper shoes on, and it's instant retaliation. It's a very different world than I've ever been in, having cherished freedom all my life, being an American, and it was just almost unbelievable. And
I
so
mean, it's really hard to imagine. Why did you do this in poetic form?
I did it in poetic form because I could express myself in a passionate way much more freely than I could if I just wrote a narrative. And so the passion in the poems are deep-set emotion towards the people that know how to survive this situation, that are outside, like my family, that stood beside me like pillars of granite and saved everything that we had, and it was incredible. I wanted to, if you don't mind, I would like to read.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I really would love to hear this, and I know our listeners would. Please go ahead.
Oh, sure. This is
We got
dedicated.
about 4 minutes left, so we still got a long way to go. So we'll just have to jump into it because there are so many questions. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Well, this is No Greater Love. This is dedicated to my husband, who is 76 this month, and he went through this whole experience with little support. But I wanted to show you how we felt about this whole situation together. Beyond
Okay, and again, I
breaking,
have to prompt you. The clock is moving so quickly here in these interviews.
beyond the breaking waves, a lone man rides in his canoe, scanning the horizon. He searches endlessly for a figure so close to his heart, so dear to him. The salt spray caresses his brow, and he feels at one with the sea. So kind, so good, so loyal, this man. Why must he wait? Because they have taken her away. Suddenly his senses reel towards an ethereal energy not yet formed. Concern creases his brow as he watches and waits. Slowly he becomes conscious of a sound, so soft, so enticing. Whispers skim along the waves, only for him. His conch shell poised, he captures these sounds. I must understand, he cries out. Carefully, he puts the shell to his ear. She will return, it echoes.
All right, I'm going to stop you right there. It sounds brilliant and insightful, profound, emotional, because I want to ask you about a plan, an action plan you're looking to get going, and what are the consequences, both economically and socially, for not moving forward?
Well, right now, our prison industrial complex costs the American taxpayer $80 billion a year, which is 25% of the Department of Justice budget. $80 billion. And you will find the trends of incarceration to be very interesting. For example, in the elderly, there's been a 1,300% increase in the inmate population of elderly people. And that's from the 80s to the present. This is a study that was done. And of course, as you understand, the elderly cost a great deal more than an average inmate, of say 20 to 30 years old. And so because of the medical and all the associated things that go with taking an elderly person into prison. Now, we think of prison as punitive. We think of it as putting people in prison for the public safety. But the research shows that the elderly, for example, are no threat to society generally.
Right, and I agree with that. And we see it on the TSA inspections at airports and everywhere else. As the clock really winds down for the last few seconds, are you concerned about retaliation? You've already been through a nightmare, and now you're moving forward.
No, I'm concerned about social movement and getting people involved in this and explaining what the problems are, what the prison system really is from an insider's point of view.
Carol Jean Singh, this should be an hour interview. Unfortunately, we can't do it. Gray Dawn, published by Author House. Just a fascinating story. You're an amazing lady. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome.